Okay, quick music disclaimer here. I do not own the rights to this music, which belongs to the rightful owner, who is the intoxicating mind of Dr. Frankenstein. So he made my intro and my outro, and I hope you guys enjoy. Check them out on Spotify and YouTube, and no copyright infringement is intended. Have a good day.
A clear choice of good versus evil, of right versus wrong.
Twisted Tales.
Welcome back to Twisted Tales, folks. So, I'll continue on with some more Ted Bundy. Now, we had a couple victims in Utah and everything here, so let's start back off at that. Now, his next victim will be Laura and Aime. Now, Bundy kidnapped, raped, and murdered Laura. Everybody knows what kidnapping and rape is, right? But for those that don't know, kidnapping will be a criminal offense that consists of the unlawful taking and carrying away of a person by force, and rape is the unlawful sexual activity that often leads to sexual intercourse that's carried out forcibly under threat of injury and against a person's will. Bundy had beaten and raped her so bad that her face was beaten beyond recognition. So this means that someone has been so severely damaged or altered that it's no longer possible to identify them. Now, this phrase is often used to describe a person who has been badly injured or has been destroyed or altered to the point of being unrecognizable. At the time, she was staying in numerous places with friends. She disappeared on November 1st, 1974, after attending a Halloween party on October 31st. And I'm sure everybody knows what a Halloween party is, right? Sometimes you dress up, sometimes you don't, right? But usually you go, you wear costumes, you dress up as like your favorite character, maybe like a cartoon character or like from a horror movie or something, right? Whatever you want to be, it's your night. So that party would have been on a Thursday night, and then she disappeared sometime after that. So what she was doing here, staying at numerous places, she was kind of couch surfing. So this means like staying temporarily at other people's homes, typically sleeping on like their sofas or, staying in like their bedrooms or something like that if she had good friends, shit like that. Or like staying with a series of different friends or relatives, etc. Now, friends recall her leaving shortly after midnight, and she was planning a hitchhike home, and unfortunately, she was never seen again. Now, hitchhiking does have its downsides. I mean, it can result in abuse, robbery, sexual assault, that and plus many other crimes, right? Now, if the driver's a criminal or a fucking weirdo, what have you, right? I mean, shit's gonna go down. So, just a little bit about her now. Laura had brown eyes, medium-length blonde hair. She was 5'10". She weighed about 140 pounds, and she wore her hair in long blonde locks. Now, some of her friends recall that she kind of had this hippie type kind of look. So hippies, I guess, it's like they do stuff for like peace advocate and shit like that. So this means like somebody that advocates for peace, tries to end conflicts by transforming them into a culture of peace, showing support for like peace education and such. And she was a student at North Sanpete High. This is a public school located up in Mount Pleasant, Utah, on 390 East 700th Street. So this whole place offers up like a variety of educational and co-curricular programs to students that are in grades 9 through 12. And it was established back in the year 1908. So, they have a school mascot here of a hawk. and their school colors are red, white, and black. And sometime later, she ended up dropping out of the high school. And at one time there, she was a member of the Laurel class in the Fairview North Ward. Now, some think that the reason that she dipped out of school was because she got teased about her height for like being so tall and shit. So students at the school actually coined the nickname on her. This was Wilt the Stilt, and this totally fucking pissed her off. A little bit about her life growing up. She adored animals. I found some details on that here. Now, there was a wild deer that had wandered out from a canyon at one time. So, her being her lovely self, decided to go feed it and whatnot. And over time, she actually was able to convince the family, to kind of keep it as a pet, I guess. So, I mean, she really did love her animals. Her family enjoyed horses. She loved her friends. And everybody remembers that she was just a really shy and loving person. She rode horses with some friends at the Silver Spurs 4-H riding club. So that was a club that she had for riding horses and whatnot. So pretty cool. She had some activities. And the Silver Spurs group also engages in community services, such as like collecting and delivering supplies to those affected by wildfires. Demonstrates their commitment to both horsemanship and community well-being. Now, they actually helped a couple farms and stuff there that lost their horses due to fires and stuff, and they couldn't get them out, so they would get items that they needed for them and, drag in some money and shit like that. So that's pretty cool. Good on them. So this whole division of the 4-H club, this was a horse-focused group within a larger 4-H organization. So what they do here, they kind of aim to educate the youth about like the various aspects of horses, including their breeds, training, behavior, and grooming. They also participate in a ton of activities like trail rides, horse charades, and working with wild mustangs. Now, these wild mustangs, they're actually feral horses of the western United States. They're very well known for their resilience and adaptability. So this means that like they're descended from like a once domesticated animal, so they return to a wild state. So the club that she was in actually emphasizes building relationships with horses and understanding their body language. Now these horses aren't anything to fuck with either. They're actually pretty big in size, different colors and whatnot. So most of these stand between like 52 to 60 inches. They weigh about 700 to 1,000 pounds, and Mustangs can reach speeds of up to 35 miles per hour. So get that in you. And during her life, she was used to doing a lot of tough fucking work too. Her family had once lived in an old farmhouse up in Mount Pleasant. So this is located down in Sanpete County. Now, originally, settlers had first named this town after a dude named Madison D. Hableton. But this dude kind of fell out of favor over time, and the settlement was renamed Pleasant Creek. So during the time it was Pleasant Creek, this was the site of the signing of the peace treaty to end the Black Hawk War. And then sometime later, after shit changed again, they finally named it Mount Pleasant. Now, while the family was here, they had a bunch of animals kicking around. There was like chickens, peacocks, hogs, cows, turkeys, you name it, sheep. I think there was like a dozen cats that roamed the farmyard and stuff, dogs and all that. So yeah, no, everybody loved the animals there. Laura was also into sports, so she was like sort of a tomboy, if you will. She enjoyed playing softball. She played on competitive teams. So what softball is, it's like a modified form of baseball that gets played on a smaller field. with a larger ball. It actually had 7 innings rather than 9, and underarm pitching. So the game evolved during like the late 19th century and shit. And then it kind of went into like a form of indoor baseball. It's also played on like a smaller diamond here and all that. So yeah, pretty cool shit. And with her love of softball, like she even won the 1972 state championship. So I mean, she kicked total ass at anything that she did. Now her father was a Jim Aime, and her father really enjoyed like taking her daughter out hunting into the bush. One time, she actually even helped him bag the first prize deer in a Utah hunting contest, and I think she was like 10 years old at this time. Now, when Laura was 11 years old, she was thrown into a barbed wire fence by her horse, so she was flung off her horse, and she actually injured her ring finger, her forearm, and her upper arm. Now, her father, he was born on August 10th, 1928, up in Fairview, Utah. Now, after completing high school, he joined the U.S. Navy, and then after getting out of the military, he went on to attend the University of Utah. Now, her mother, her name was Shirlene. She was born April 12th, 1934, in Orem, and the couple were married on January 14th, 1951. And during his lifetime here, Jim worked as a steel worker for Geneva Steel. So this is a steel mill located in Vineyard, Utah, United States. It was founded during World War II, actually. So this was to enhance the national steel output. Now this whole bitch operated from December 1944 to November 2001. Now its unique name came from a resort that had once operated nearby the shores of Utah Lake. And at its peak of operations, the whole steel mill was the largest steel mill west of the Mississippi River. It actually produced like 60% of steel used in the western United States. But the whole thing was like constructed with federal funds. This was from November 1941 to December of 44. And this was by the Columbia Steel Company and the United States Steel Corporation, or U.S. Steel for short, I guess. Now, Vineyard, Utah was chosen as a location for the new plant because iron ore, coal, and limestone, plus a lot of other resources, were necessary for primary steelmaking. Now, they were all located nearby areas of Utah. And because Utah Valley is like far inland, away from possible like Japanese attacks and stuff on the west coast, so it was a little harder to fuck with them, I guess. Now, Geneva Steel operated as a U.S. government facility until June of 1946. Then it was sold for $47.5 million to U.S. Steel. Now, Geneva Steel was built to increase steel production for America during World War II. President Franklin D. Roosevelt had proposed opening a steel mill in Utah back in 36, but the whole idea was shelved after a couple of months. Then, after the attack on Pearl Harbor, the U.S. entered the war, and the steel plant was put into development. So this is where this guy worked at. So it's a pretty big-ass fucking steel plant, right? Now, Geneva shipped its first order in, I believe, April of 1944, so comprising over 600 tons of steel plate. Now, with the thousands of new jobs that were created by the plant, it was hard to fill as many men were working overseas and stuff, right? So they hired a bunch of women. They began working to make up the difference. I think they filled like 25% of the plant's workforce. And just to acknowledge like Utah and like Geneva Steel's contribution during the war, several Liberty ships were named in honor of Utah, including like the USS Joseph Smith, USS Brigham Young, USS Provo, and the USS Peter Skeen Ogden. And, as Cliff Clavin would say, it's a little known fact. The movie Footloose was set in a fictional town in Oklahoma, but was actually filmed entirely in Utah County, Utah. Now, this was as part of the Provo metropolitan area. The Geneva Steel Mill was actually the setting for the dance montage by lead character Ren McCormack. Yeah, so there's some random fucking ADD facts for you. Now, Laura was Jim and Shirlene's second child. She also had four younger sisters. It was Evelyn, Michelle, Dana, and Tommy Lynn. And she had an older brother. His name was John. At that party, her friends drank some alcohol, they chilled out. She wanted some smokes, so sometime after midnight, she decided to go downtown to go purchase them. This would have been down the area of American Fork. This is a city in north central Utah County, Utah. City is about 32 miles or 51 kilometers southeast of Salt Lake City, and it's part of the Provo-Orem Metropolitan Statistical Area. So, this little place has a population of a little over 33,000. This is back in like 2020. Obviously, it's grown since the 70s, right? Now, her body was later found in American Fork Canyon, a 13-minute drive from American Fork, so it's like a 6.1 mile distance. Her body was found by this dude named Rabin Ivins. He was 19 years old at the time, and he had a woman that was with him. So when they found her body, they actually noticed a light blue Volkswagen in the area around the same time. Laura's body was taken from the scene to the office of the medical examiner, where the autopsy was performed around 5 p.m. November 27, 1974. Now, American Fork Canyon here. This place is pretty cool. It's known for rock climbing, camping, fishing, etc. Now to access here, you go take Highway 92, you exit in Highland, and then the whole canyon connects to like Provo Canyon via the Alpine Loop. And upon that guy finding her body there, he had this to later say. I looked, and I thought, maybe it was a deer or something. And then I noticed it was a girl. It looked like she was dead. It was really grotesque. There was blood around her neck and breasts, and she was naked and lying on that hill. And it was a little bit of a freak out, and I lost it. I thought maybe the guy that did it was just still somewhere around. So I panicked, worrying about my girlfriend and all, and we ran down the trail, came down, and ran right through the creek and got in the car. And then I just drove as fast as I could down to the ranger station, and I reported it. So what the Alpine Loop is, well, let me tell you. So the Alpine Scenic Loop in American Fork Canyon was established in the 1930s here. So this is part of a Civilization Conservation Corps, a New Deal program that was designed to combat unemployment during the Great Depression. And at the time where she was found, there was like no snow in that area. A little bit of frost and shit, but her body was covered in leaves. So the whole place is like a recreational area covered in bush. Now, when her body was found, it was completely nude, with the exception of a necklace and a ring that had a green stone in it, and a rubber band around her wrist. She was covered with multiple leaves, twigs, clumps of dirt, and caked with mud. There was a nylon tightly wrapped around her neck, which was used as a choking device. So when she got to the medical examiners, the autopsy revealed the following. 1. Multiple contused abrasions on the scalp. So this refers to multiple areas of bruised and scraped skin on the head. 2. A depressed fracture of the skull. So this could be like a break in one of the 8 bones that makes up the skull, usually caused by blunt force trauma. It can be a hairline crack or a depressed fracture where the bone is pushed in. 3. She had a fracture of the left ramus of the mandible. So the left ramus of the mandible refers to the vertical quadrilateral shaped portion of the left side of the lower jawbone. extending upwards from the body of the mandible. She had multiple areas of ecchymosis of the ears and retroauricular area. Now, ecchymosis is a medical term for bruise, specifically a large area of bruised skin caused by blood leaking from broken blood vessels beneath the surface. Epidural and subdural hemorrhage, blisterial. So, bilateral epidermal and subdural hemorrhages refer to the bleeding in the brain surrounding the tissues on both sides of the head. Number 6, she had multiple contusions of the brain. Now, these are bruises on the brain tissue caused by head trauma. Number 7, she had diffuse traumatic subarachnoid hemorrhage of the brain. Fuck, I hope I said that right. Probably didn't. So what this is bleeding in the space between the brain and its surrounding membranes caused by head trauma. 8, manual strangulation. This is a form of strangulation where the pressure is applied to the neck using hands, arms, and or other body parts or blunt objects. Number 9, she had a fracture of the hyoid bone. So the hyoid bone fracture is like a rare fracture of the hyoid bone, accounting for 0.002% of all fractures in humans. It's actually commonly associated with strangulation, so it's kind of rare. 10, strangulation by ligature, a type of asphyxia produced by constriction of the neck using ligature material without suspending the body. 11, on her face, she also had tiny, like, red or purple spots. This was caused by bleeding under the skin, and this usually happens from broken capillaries. So these are like small hemorrhages, meaning that they are caused by bleeding from capillaries. So, 12, she also had petechia of sclera and conjunctiva, and this is also like little signs of like infections like strep throat or a result of trauma to the larynx or something like that, right? And surrounding structures. This also happens in like strangulation cases and shit. She also had edema of the vocal cords. This is a condition where the vocal cords swell due to fluid buildup in the superficial layer of the vocal folds. The swelling can cause voice changes, most notably like hoarseness or like a deeper voice, and in severe cases it may lead to breathing difficulties. And she also had, what was it, petechia of larynx and epiglottis. So again, she had like the small pinpoint red or purple spots here. Now, 15, cerebral edema. So this is also known as increased intracranial pressure, or ICP. So this is a serious condition that occurs when fluid buildup in the brain. It causes swelling and increased pressure within the skull. 16, she had abrasions and ecchymosis of the skin, face, neck, shoulders, and torso. So these are like both skin injuries here, but they differ in nature. An abrasion is a superficial skin injury where the outer layers of the skin are scraped or rubbed away, while ecchymosis is commonly known as a bruise. It's a discoloration of the skin caused by blood leaking from the damaged blood vessels beneath the skin. 17, pulmonary edema. So this is excessive fluid accumulation of the tissue of the airspace of the lungs. This leads to impaired gas exchange. So this can most often lead to like shortness of breath or like respiratory failure. Number 18, she had the postprandial distension of stomach. So this refers to a feeling of fullness, bloated, or increasing abdominal size after eating. It can be normal physiological response to food intake or a symptom of various digestive issues. 19, tubo-ovarian fibrous adhesions. So this refers to the presence of scar tissue adhesions that bind the fallopian tubes and ovaries together. So this refers to the presence of scar tissue or adhesions that bind the fallopian tubes and ovaries together. The condition is often a consequence of pelvic inflammatory disease, so PID. So these adhesions can disrupt the normal function of the reproductive organs, potentially leading to infertility, pelvic pain, and other complications. Now, more so, her scalp hair is dark brown, 15 to 17 inches long and parted in the middle. Pubic hair is brown. The axillary hair has been recently shaved, and the growth of it was less than 1/8 of an inch. Her eyes were brown. Her shoe size was 7E. So a shoe size of 7E actually indicates women's shoe size 7 with extra wide width bitting. So this means like a 7E shoe is designed to accommodate individuals with wider feet or those that need extra space for comfort or, anything like that. And there was a linear scar on the anterior lateral aspect of the mid-third of the left forearm that measures half an inch in length. And that scar is actually one identifying mark, he noted. And after she was found, the body was recognized by her father, James.
And another quick thing here. It's also said that when the father went to go identify the body here, and then he found out it was confirmed it was her, he kind of like let out this god awful scream, right? I guess everything came out. You find out your daughter's dead, and yeah, I mean, you can't really fucking do anything about it, right? Not something that you want to hear. And I guess he let his emotions out at that time, right? What the fuck do you expect, right? So shortly before Laura went missing, as we know, she dropped out of high school and all that, and became a runaway and stuff. But despite all of this, she still remained in contact with her family. They were kind of figuring things out and letting her do her own thing type deal, right? Like, she'll contact us when she contacts us. She had a transient nature about her, right? So they just let it go. They're like, well, we'll give her a couple days, right? They remained patient. But at one point, Laura actually failed to show up for a hunting trip with her father. And that's something that she never did, right? That's when they started to get worried. And even Bundy, like, he was fucking living in Salt Lake City at the time, which is roughly 30 minutes away from Lehi, Utah. And yeah, I mean, identifying your daughter's body is going to be the hardest fucking thing in the world, right? And especially when you notice the scar on the victim's arm, right? Like I said, that was consistent with the horse riding injury there that she received, right? That was when she was a young kid. And yeah, that's just a fucked up thing, right? So all the emotions running through him at that time, that's probably why he let out that scream and everything.
The autopsy further detailed that her complexion is fair to medium, and it had like hyperpigmentation of the skin. This is of the face, the neck, chest, abdomen, upper and lower extremities, and with area of non-tanning of the skin of the nape and intercapicular regions of the back and interscapular regions of the back. So the whole nape thing means like the back of a person's neck. So the interscapular region is primarily located in the thoracic spine, which is the middle section of the spine between the neck and the lower back. So it's like the area between the shoulder blades, specifically the upper back region of the spine. There's also a superficial, irregular, linear abrasion of the skin of the anterior aspect of the neck immediately below the level of the hyoid bone. And that measures like, 3/4 inches in length and has a maximum width of 1/8. Your hyoid bone, this is like the front of your neck. It supports your tongue and it plays a key role in speaking and swallowing. It's connected to a nearby structure via ligaments, muscles, cartilage, and this is like the only floating bone in your body. Now there's also an irregular bloodless abrasions on the left pectoral region, immediately below the breast. This is a superficial wound caused by rubbing or scraping, where the skin surface is worn away without significant bleeding. The anterior lateral aspect of the right hemothorax This refers to the area in the front and the side of the right chest cavity where blood has accumulated in the space between the lungs and the chest wall, and also an inner aspect of the right arm in an area that has an overall measurement of 4 3/4 inch by 3/4 inch.
So, after Laura's remains were found, the autopsy was done and everything, law enforcement determined that her hair had been recently shampooed. So this made them think that the killer returned to her corpse on multiple occasions and groomed her and everything, and also engaged in acts of necrophilia. And Laura was just hitchhiking from place to place that night, so I mean, it wasn't any different than any other time that she did it. But unfortunately, Bundy was out that night and he was looking for a victim. And there are some that say that she was on her way back to the Naughty Pine in Lehigh. So the Naughty Pine's like a fucking restaurant or whatever there. Little get together place. Originally it was known as Brown's back in the day, I guess. And there is a lot of speculation on the night in question, right? Like how she got around and shit. Police mentioned that there was an eyewitness that said she was seen at American Fork. Now, this is within the Robinson Park. What we do know is at some point Bundy eventually found her, right? And her body was found in the American Fork Canyon, which sucks. And there are another couple scenarios here that people have come up with over time about her disappearance that night. So, number one, that she left the party in Orem that was located at a mobile home up in the suburbs. Two, that the party was actually in Lehigh. And third, that the party took place at the Naughty Pines Cafe in Lehigh. But unfortunately, we'll never know. But the most common one is that she left the party up in Orem and then ended up in William S. Robinson Park. And this is like a fucking 13-minute drive, so not too far. And even if she did walk to go get smokes, it still would have been like a bit of a walk. And she was eventually picked up by a dude named George Alley. This guy was a friend of hers. And Robinson Park was where she eventually met up with Bundy, who was actually stalking the area. And even some of her friends had got worried about her there and started looking for her. This was about 3 and 4 a.m. So they all went out and tried to find her, but they unfortunately never seen hide nor hair of her. Now, when she was last seen, she was wearing silver cross-shaped earrings, a tan sleeveless turtleneck-style sweater. It's had like white horizontal stripes, a navy pea coat with a hood, light brown lace-up boots, and blue Levi's. They had patches on the rear. Now, there were various sources that reported she was wearing a halter top as well, and her nails were adorned with black polish and little silver flakes. When Bundy actually escaped prison for the first time up in Aspen, this was June 7th, 1977, her father, Jim, heard about this, and he just fucking raged in anger. And the father ended up just remaining home with the family and everything, right? And the mother, Shirlene, she was just so afraid for the safety of her other girls that Jim actually went out and bought her a .38 caliber pistol. So, yeah, he wanted to protect his family, right? He didn't want that fuckhead showing up again. And as we all know, Bundy was recaptured just a few days later on June 13th of 1977. But he escaped a second time later. That was the same year on December 30th. This was from Garfield County Jail in Glenwood Springs. Now, by this time here, the family actually hawked the .38, so they pawned it, I guess. They were having like some financial problems and such. And when Bundy escaped the second time here, Jim was just fucking angry and bitter, right? And his wife also was scared to death yet again, right? She actually quit her job so she could stay home and watch the kids. And as we wind down,
The doctor that actually did her autopsy, Sergei Michael Moore, he passed away peacefully up in fucking Salt Lake City. He died at the age of 75 due to complications from diabetes. So I'll just give you guys a little bit of info on this guy. He was born April 6, 1928 up in Mexico City. Part of his childhood was spent in Los Angeles. He was a graduate of the University of Mexico, and he served on a rotating internship at St. Benedict's Hospital up in Ogden. So this dude was licensed to practice medicine in Ohio and Utah, and he was board certified in both anatomic and forensic pathology. And obviously during his life, this dude loved the challenge of his medical practice. Now, he served as a lieutenant commander in the U.S. Navy during the late 50s, and he was actually a member of the Latter-day Saints Church during his lifetime. Now, police mentioned that the weapon used to inflict such brutal injuries upon Laura was most likely either a pry bar or a crowbar. Now, her face was incredibly swollen, her tongue was hanging from her mouth, and she also suffered a vaginal puncture that may have been made by a weapon of some sort. Yeah, it's just a fucking terrible thing that Bundy did to her. So I'm just gonna dumb down the whole autopsy report here in short because I got fucking technical with that. Now, her autopsy revealed a broken jaw, a fractured skull, bruises and lacerations to her head and shoulders, a deep cut to the back of the head, and injuries to the vagina and anus. That's fucking Bundy for you, right? Just vile and fucking everything else. Some years later, after his daughter's murder, Jim was driving near the spot where her remains were discovered, and he was with a friend. So he said, "My little baby was up there, all by herself, and there was nothing I could do to help her." He still carried that with him all those years, right? But right before Bundy was executed, investigators had to exhume Laura's body just to get another hair sample here because the first one that they obtained after her remains were initially discovered ended up getting misplaced. Now, Jim ended up crying at the thought of it there, but later on he said, "Why not? They can't hurt her anymore." He said, "There's no way of putting it out of your mind." And despite the way that she was killed, it was very similar to Bundy's MO. She fit the physical description of one of the victims, but when police questioned him later on, he initially denied any responsibility for her murder and refused to talk about her when he was questioned. But he fucked around and in an attempt to actually delay his execution by confessing to murders and stuff here, he actually finally confessed to the murder of Laura and Aime. And her father, Jim, ended up dying at the age of 59. This was on November 26, 1987. He passed up in Salt Lake City, Salt Lake County, Utah, USA.
And lastly, Laura also had a brother named John Reese Aime. So he was born on September 25th, 1954 in Murray, Salt Lake, Utah. So he died on November 29th, 2010 up in Gunnison, San Pete, Utah, United States at the age of 56. So during his life, he graduated from high school, he joined the military, and became a radar specialist in the Army. After leaving the service, he began working in construction up in Tacoma. And on April 28, 1975, this is around 10 p.m., he kind of got into some shit. He reportedly approached a young woman on a street, and he briefly spoke with her. And then he physically accosted her. And later on, after police arrived and everything, she testified that she was grabbed by him and dragged towards a brushy area, and that the defendant had ran when she fell to the ground and screamed. Now, after she let out this scream, he took off, but a passerby caught him and held him at gunpoint until police arrived. Later on, he said he had no intention
of harming or raping that young woman. And even his wife was completely puzzled by the whole incident, right? Because he couldn't fucking provide an explanation for it, right? Now, he was later taken to jail. They began digging into his past and stuff, and a probation officer wrote he and his family had suffered enough as a result of his sister being raped and killed in Utah. So while he was in jail, he actually got married to a medical technician and an Air Force vet. Now, this was a pretty unusual ceremony, and it actually took place without the guard's knowledge. So yeah, the whole fucking 2-day trial ended up happening in June of 1977. He was actually convicted of a misdemeanor assault, and he was sentenced to a 5-year term at Washington's Western State Hospital at Steilacoom for the rehabilitation of sex offenders. And for obvious reasons, this fucking devastated both parents. And when the father, Jim, had talked about the incident, all he said was, he was just a scared kid from the country. He didn't mean any harm. And that's just a little bit about her brother and everything else that went along with it. And with that, folks, I think I'm just going to end this episode here, and I'll pick it back up tomorrow. Because I still got a couple more victims of women in Utah that he murdered and whatnot. It was a long day at work. And I'll just make an episode out of Laura here, so I hope you guys really enjoy this. And, I took my time to try to get this figured out for you. And I will finish this off tomorrow or Wednesday. So thank you very much for listening to Twisted Tales. You guys have a wonderful night.
Twisted Tales.